We were speaking about the way you compose songs. I'm curious what that process actually entails. Do you guys sit around a laptop? Do you write things out on paper? I spoke to a band who they have a whiteboard. Like they map out all the sections on a whiteboard and then they jam it out. And then depending on whether it sounds right to them, they'll change what they put up on the whiteboard.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of varied. We've done the whiteboard thing. I think we've done it a little bit. We did it. Yeah, in particular, it's the one part on Icaros, the one after the second. Is it verse or chorus? No, that's the wrong song. Yeah, that part we wrote it out on a whiteboard because it was too confusing. If not, so we wrote it out on a whiteboard and then we played it like 100 times to make it sound not terrible. And then then we learned it. But other than that, it's like there are some like exceptions on this album because both Hunter and Hydra were like mostly written before we rehearsed the songs as a whole. Because Hunter was like Stian's idea, his brainchild mostly. He wrote most parts and had an idea of what he wanted it to sound like and sort of told us what to play and how to do it and stuff. And Hydra was a sketch Fredrik made from ideas with some of them we've been jamming a bit on, but most of it was like he made up the riffs and the parts and he wrote a sketch and then we rehearsed it and probably tweaked it a little bit, but not very much. And then we recorded it. But other than that, and even up to this point on both City of the Sun and Contrapasso, it's been mostly like people come up with a riff and then we just jam on that riff for a little while and then maybe someone comes up with a melody that fits the riff and if not we're like this other melody that we played like 2 months ago, this kind of fits with this riff and then we just blend everything together and try out stuff and sort of put the pieces together like experimentally. We just try things and if it doesn't work we try something else and then we come up with maybe we come up with a new part or we modify the riff or we modify the melody and then we just try. It's almost like in like a computer science you would call it like iterating through different versions. So that's in some ways that's what we do sometimes.
just just to add something to that because it in a way it's interesting. Like my mind after having like a classical education, classical music education, I often visualize and think music as it's written in like on notes, but I the others they kind of remember music more in like in bulks, in parts. So like I think our memory of music is kind of slightly different in a way. So, but like using that oral tradition, like learning out of like it's never written down on paper or anything, just like parts, as you mentioned with the whiteboard, as we like do like 80-90% of the time in Seven Impale. I think that's a nice way to also give it that it's kind of like a filter. If we can't remember the stuff, it probably wasn't that cool or that good. So keeping it like memory based, it's mostly memory based. I think that's a good way of like finding those gems of musical motifs and riffs and parts. Yeah.
And but also just recording when jamming out ideas in rehearsals, especially when we don't have the time to rehearse every week, every yeah, always. So just the thing you said about sitting in front of a computer and making sketches and demos. When I made the what became the like blueprint for Hydra, it was some of it were some ideas that I had recorded probably 5 years ago. and I had some recordings from things we had jammed out in rehearsals and ideas that the other guys had put into this idea that I had. So I kind of just sat down and filtered through the different material, the original idea that I had, as well as things that all the ideas that had come out of it, and I made a kind of, this is my proposition for the structure of this song. And then of course the whiteboard comes in very handy in terms of just, okay, we've played all the parts before, you know the stuff, but this is the structure of everything. So it's a kind of back and forth. I have this idea, I see what the other guys make of it, and then I put all of their ideas into kind of like Stian said, he thinks of things in a kind of more like in a classical performer sense of delivery, and I like things very structured, at least at some point, not necessarily when I play, but when we've reached a certain point in kind of jamming out all the ideas, then you have to filter through it and what does this actually mean? What are we supposed to play and when?
It should also be mentioned that the really hard part is naming all the parts. So you have like the jogging riff and the surfing organ and just like every sort of variety of names, just to like try to make people remember what the hell are we actually talking about right here. Because there's been a lot of names for parts that only we have like an association to. So a lot of creative names to make people remember what part are we actually talking about right now. So then it's always easy to say it's the kraut part. That's always nice, because if we have a kraut riff, everyone knows they just have to find one note. It has to be a right note. That's the hard part. But then you just have to go like that, and it's good.
Awesome. So at this point in the episode, listeners have heard you talk about a few songs on the new album and actually perform one a cappella. That's the kind of exclusive content that we bring on this podcast. But I think let's talk about Summit. This is the third Seven Impale album, and it was released at the end of May through Charisma Records. Fredrik, you mentioned, was it Hunter or was it Ikros that you started 5 years ago?
Hydra.
Oh, Hydra, sorry.
Parts of Hydra, and also actually parts of Sisyphus is something I picked out from some really old demos, sketches that I made. Of course, also had forgotten that I ever made. But that was brought to the table of, the vault of 1 million things we could try to make something of.
And I should mention that it's been 7 years since your previous album, Contrapasso, came out. When did you guys actually start working on the music for this album, for Summit?
Stian moved back to Bergen right before the pandemic broke out, start of 2020. And I guess, maybe during 2021, the fall of 2021, maybe. I'm actually not sure.
Was it when we started writing it, or like producing it somehow?
No, when we kind of set our eyes on that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think I sent a message to the guys, and I think it was late summer 2021. I was like, okay, it's time. Let's aim for recording a new album, and we all agreed that, well, it's time now. And we had material that we had played live. Like Sisyphus was actually premiered like 80% how it was, no, 70-80% how it was. It is now on record. We also played in Italy for the first time in 2018, and so we kind of had like that was kind of like a song that we were really like satisfied with, like, okay, this is good stuff. This is Seven Impale. This is Seven Impale music, and this is a good way to find a structure, find an idea, and a theme somehow for the next record. But then of course life happens, and I moved out of Bergen, and then time flies by. But yeah, summer 2021, we started like, okay, let's aim for the recording of the new album, and also kind of finishing material we had in the wank bank. You can call it that. You actually can't call it that. But in the, I would say, in the Dropbox. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have a lot of fun together. So yeah, we had plenty of unfinished material to work with. So then you just have to like make a plan, and we started making that plan. And yeah.
So even though some of the songs like Sisyphus and parts of
Hydra
existed before you guys sat down and started working on the album, the actual planning for the album started in 2021.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then we contacted our producer to find like, okay, what's a good time to start recording, and just as an artist, you just have to create some framework for your work. If you have no framework, you'll never finish anything off. So we just set like a date for the recording of the album, and that's our kind of like a deadline for finishing the album, because our plan is always to record it like live with everyone in studio except for the vocals. But it was postponed because I suddenly got some work in Germany for the first schedule, so we had to postpone it for like a half a year. But we were very like determined, like, okay, now we are going to record this album, so we're going to find dates to go in studio and do it. And from then it was just like, okay, let's work.